Okay. Hi, this is the final project for LAND240 with Madhavi Dixit as our professor, and we are doing the Islamic gardens under the Moorish Almohad dynasty. So, with the table of contents, I will be doing the introduction into this era of gardens. Um, Ashton Rains will be doing the part one. That's going to be the historic sites of the gardens. And then Gage is going to be doing the contemporary example. And then, yeah. So to start it all, we have to talk about the time that it kind of took place in around 500 AD. Um, Islam as a religion started to prevail and kind of proliferate. It expanded across through North Africa and into Southern Europe in Spain, pretty much. Um, Morocco and Spain took the majority of this style of gardens, and it goes through heaven on earth. It's kind of a piece of heaven that's encapsulated in an enclosed garden inside of a building, with it using tiles and a rectangular pond, an axial layout, hedges or shade, floral fragrances, and floral trees, namely orange trees. And yeah, um, during 500 to 1500, it spread quickly, even reaching out to India. And that's kind of where another section of the Mughal gardens kind of took place and spread a little bit more. So this is mainly through Morocco and Spain. Included, as I was saying, it's kind of perceived as a piece of paradise on Earth, with it having the treed shade, the use of water, so like fountains and a square or rectangular pond. Beautiful buildings with the tile, the Moorish tile, and uh, dense vegetation with those fruits or flowers for fragrance. And then off to Ashton. Thank you.
Our first example for historical Moorish gardens is the Buhera Gardens in Seville, France. Here you can see where it is and relative to Spain, and then here where it is relative to the city. It is very east of everything else, and you can see there's many other gardens in the city as well. Okay, first we have its relationship with surroundings. It is very introverted and very formal, so it does not take in its surroundings at all. It creates its own paradise separate from the city. It doesn't incorporate anything. It is very isolated. When you go to the garden, you are there for the garden itself, nothing else. And you can't really see anything else either. It's very secluded into that spot alone. Next, we have its spatial organization, and it uses axes. Here is an example of one axis, and which could also be referred to as a vista, with the building, the main building, at the end of it. We have this path with benches and palm trees on either side, and then also there are channels of water also behind those benches, that line either side of the path. Here's the same vista, but from a little further back, so we can see this additional central area here with a little fountain in the middle that adds to it as well. Here we can see its layout as a whole. This is the best image I could find to see its general layout, but you can see that it employs a lot of symmetry, geometry, and uses axial layouts as common throughout Moorish gardens. Here we can see this main axis here that leads to the building at the end. And then on the other end, we have this fountain that was seen previously. And then here we have this horizontal axis going. You can see the symmetry on both sides as well. Next, we have its use of landscape elements. And here you can see the large reflecting pool, which I think is one of the central elements of this garden, as well as some of the vegetation. So we see these trees and tall trees planted here, as well as the palm trees that were seen earlier. So the reflecting pool, though, is the main feature here, I would say, because it causes that reflection and just expands the space. So its symbolism is to represent a paradise on earth. Like mentioned previously, it is very separate and secluded from the rest of the city, it seems. So it's separate from the harsh outside world and is creating that slice of heaven as is common throughout these gardens. For our second example, we have the Menara Gardens located in Marrakesh, Morocco, and it is west of the main city of Medina, as you can see here. So its relationship with surroundings, as opposed to the previous garden, this one does incorporate the outside environment. And so it uses framing views and very open perspective. So it includes that outside environment it brings it into the garden to expand what the garden is like and add to the view. So this is what can be seen from the second story of the main building that we will see here in a minute. So we have this nice view. Here is from the other side. So this is that main building I was talking about. So we can see more framing of views and open perspectives. And in this one specifically, you can see the mountains in the background that are here that really add to the experience in the garden itself, as well as the reflecting pool helping to extend that view. Next, we can see its spatial organization. So this one also has lots of geometric tendencies and symmetry and axial planning throughout. This is that main pool that we saw with the building here. And you can see many straight lines and axes and everything planned in order. So here you can see the order and all these plants and trees planted in meticulous rows. So everything is in a line, in a row, and organized. Its landscape elements, like the last garden, employs a reflecting pool and vegetation. So we have a large reflecting pool used to extend the view, and so we have the use of water there, and then the vegetation throughout, which is native to the area as well. And so its symbolism is also heaven on earth. The use of water and grand views helps add to that. So it reflects heaven in that way. It is grand views and the tranquility of the water too adds to it all, just bringing you closer to that point to where you can catch a glimpse of what it might be in heaven. So, yeah.
So for our modern day or contemporary example, we went with the Aga Khan Garden as pictured here in this first slide. The Aga Khan Garden was constructed in 2018 in Alberta, Canada, with the intention of bringing Islamic culture and construction into North America. The garden stands as the most northern Islamic garden, and many factors because of this were taken into consideration whenever it was being constructed. For example, there were buried heating lines to help heat the pools and water so that it would not freeze during extreme cold. and they take other measures like fully shutting off the water at certain points to keep it from clogging due to the cold. And lead archetype was, if I can pronounce this correctly, Vladimir Dujurovic. So for our first aspect of design, we went with axial. When you look at the construction of the garden, you can see that it's built off of a couple different axes, primarily a one going up and one going side to make almost a cross. And it really keeps that shape around the axis, around those two axes for the rest of the garden. Here we can see another picture of down one of the axes. This would be in comparison to that other picture. This would be the vertical axis. But this is just another picture to help visualize that axial design. For the second aspect of design, we went with symmetry. Pretty much like if you look at the earlier image, you can see that it is constructed pretty much mirrored perfectly up until you get to the larger body of water. Uh, if you look, if you look down into the middle where you see that cross section, if you look all around that, you can see that it's perfectly mirrored on both sides, especially in that square. But if you just were to cut it down the middle and you copy pasted one side to the other, you'd end up with the same product. Minus that that other garden structure at the southeast of it. That would be the only exception. And here you can see again symmetry. This is looking back up that axis of this one. So if this one was looking down at this one is looking up at that angle. Here we can see another picture. This one's very similar to the other one. It's just zoomed in to give another better appreciation for the symmetry in that middle garden. Then for the third aspect, we went with vista. Whenever you look around, as pictured in this image during more daytime, more scenic photo, you can see that it's very much has that corridor aspect, along with beautiful scenery surrounding it to really give it just a nice view, kind of know where you're looking, and really just give it the touch it needs.
I think that the Buhara Gardens and the Manara Gardens are beautiful examples of historical sites of Moorish gardens. Um, Both hold the axial layouts. They both have the ponds. The Buhara one specifically has reflective ponds, or reflective pond. Um, Again, both axial. They have the shade. You can see here the reflection from both. They're quite nice. They both have that. They both have the grid, the axial layout, um, are completely organized. They have shade along the walkways and everything, and a great depiction of heaven on earth. For the contemporary stuff, it's generally the same idea. They're a little bit less keen, as it seems, on shaded areas, but they keep the same axial layout and the same pond and everything like that, as well as the vegetation in organized fashions and trees along the area and a large use of water in their main designs. So, as you can see here, um, it's not using the standard shade that you would think with trees or floral trees, but it uses um, these kind of shade buildings. Of course, with all of them, you could also see the tiles, special tiles through them, trying to adhere to that same Moorish title or tile that was used throughout the historical sites. And finally, we have the resources. Some of these are for photos mixed with information that we gathered while getting the photos. So we have the photo resources on the page as well as the resources from the sites on here. Thank you.